Trump launched his transition website, and there's an alarming backpedal on one of his core promises during the campaign. On the issue of entitlements, his website now says this, quote, "Modernize Medicare so that it will be ready for the challenges with the coming retirement of the baby boom generation and beyond. Maximize flexibility for states in administering Medicaid to enable states to experiment with innovative methods to deliver health care to our low-income citizens." Oh boy. So for those of you who don't speak politician, let me break that down for you. Yes, cutting these programs and privatizing these programs, or semi-privatizing these programs, that's all on the table. Now, Trump campaigned on the opposite. You know, famously during the primaries, he was arguing with Ted Cruz and Jeb Bush and everybody on stage. Saying, no, I'm not going to cut Medicare. I'm not going to cut it. You paid into it, you're going to get it back. I'm not going to cut it. I'm not going to cut it. And he'd make the argument, this part was a little silly, but he'd say, it's going to be so much growth, it's going to be so tremendous that we're not going to need to cut it. It's going to be taken care of. So, I mean, this is what all the goofy Republicans say with their, Reaganomics idea. If you cut taxes for the rich and deregulate, the economy takes off and you don't need to change anything. You don't need to change it. Those programs will stay. It'll be tremendous. But look, the bottom line is, on those programs, you don't need major changes. It's the same bullshit they try to pull with Social Security. Another thing he's backpedaling on. He said he's not going to cut that, but the people he appointed to be on his transition team for the Social Security Administration, a Bush advisor and a Reagan advisor, both in favor of privatizing Social Security. Oh, no. But they try the same thing, like, oh, no, see, it's going to go bankrupt. That's it, bankrupt. That's nonsense. If you look at the numbers, I believe with Social Security, it's until 2037, it's fully solvent. And then after that, it pays out about 75% of its benefits. On what planet is that bankrupt? And all you have to do to fix it, as far as the eye can see, is remove the cap on the Social Security tax. So in other words, I think the number's at about $120,000. So if let's say you are a physical therapist for a living, and you make $120,000, you pay the same amount of money in Social Security tax as a CEO on Wall Street who raked in $13 million this year. The same amount of money. Not just, hey, the same percentage. The same amount of money you pay in Social Security tax. Because there's a cap. You don't get taxed for Social Security on anything over about $120,000. You remove that cap and just make them pay the same percentage as the person making $120,000 or as the person making $60,000, and that's it. The program's fixed. So that's the answer. That's what Bernie Sanders was calling for. But of course, Trump, I'm going to protect it. Anyway, now let me appoint people who want to cut it. Now it's the same thing. I'm telling you, this is the birth child of Paul Ryan. This is what's been, going on in his mind and what he's been trying to do for years now. Is birth child a weird way to phrase it? Brainchild, birth child is... Anyway, I think you understand what I'm saying. Modernize Medicare. Whenever you hear modernize, reform, update, all these terms used for Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security, immediately replace it with cut and privatize, because that's what it is. Those flowery words, that rhetoric, that's what they're saying. And believe me, they're going to pitch you on it. They're going to sell you on it as if it's the greatest thing ever. No, what we did is we saved the program. That's what they're going to say. They'll say, we're saving Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security. We're saving these entitlement programs. We're doing this for you. We're doing it to keep it viable as in the future. And the reality is that's not the case. Inevitably, they will be either cutting your payments or privatizing it, and henceforth cutting your payments and adding more risk to the situation so everything can go bust if you blink. And think about it. Bush tried to privatize Social Security in 2004. If he did that, what would have happened? In 2008, everybody would have went broke because the market crashed. He wanted to privatize it and hand it over to Wall Street. That would have been the worst thing ever. Now, again, the counter-argument people would make is, okay, they would have temporarily crashed, but it would have bounced back, Kyle, because right now the market's doing well, right? But again, the counter to that is, hey, dipshit, you don't think we're in another bubble? You don't think it's going to pop again? It is going to pop again. Do you know nothing about economics? So the bubble's going to pop again, and all those people with their retirement savings in Wall Street, and no more Social Security, now it's just privatized, well, again, gone. It just would have poof, went away. And we can't afford for these like 5-year spans where people have their retirement funds disappear. That's crazy. But that's what Bush wanted. That's what the Republicans have wanted. That's what Paul Ryan has had a boner for since he was a child, to cut these programs or privatize these programs. And now, even though Trump campaigned against it, oh, he is ever malleable. So if Paul Ryan sits him down and gives him a good pitch, look, here's why we're doing it, Don. We're not doing it because we're bad guys. We're doing it because we want to save the program. We want to reform the program. We want to make it viable for the long run. He's going to fall for it hook, line, and sinker. Paul Ryan said we had to do this, so we have to do this. He's a numbers man. Tremendous. That's what he is. He's a numbers man. And we're not cutting the program. We're saving the program for the future. No, you would literally be cutting the program. But they'll spin it. They'll spin it. They'll spin it. And the saddest thing is the bitch-ass Democrats might go along with it. They might. They might, because they were dying to make a deal under Obama. Obama proposed a grand bargain to cut all these entitlement programs. And he was doing it under the guise of, we got to save it. We got to save it for the long run. But thankfully, you know who saved the day here? Tea Party Republicans. You want to know why? Because they're crazy and they wanted even more cuts. They're like, now you didn't cut enough, so we're going to block it. Okay, thanks. If you were a progressive, you were holding on to your seat like, oh, okay, this worked out somehow. We don't know how, but it did. Okay. Well, now they're looking, now you're going to have perhaps the Republican Party line up behind Trump for this, behind Paul Ryan for this, and then the Democrats might be like, hey, let's do that grand bargain that we wanted to do. So, oh boy, this can get bad, but Trump appears to be backpedaling off of some core promises. I'm not going to cut Medicare. I'm not going to cut Medicaid. I'm not going to cut Social Security or privatize them or semi-privatize them. This language is exactly that. Modernize Medicare. Red flag. Modernize. And maximize flexibility for states in administering Medicaid. Hand it over more to the states and experiment with, quote, innovative methods to deliver health care to our low-income citizens. Innovative. In other words, the program's not good as it is. We got to be innovative. And what does innovation always lead to? Because what are they saying? Privatize it. That's always better. Because the politicians got to sell out to their overlords, their corporate overlords. And this is just another example right here.